We scaled this cash practice from $800K per month to $1.5 million per month in just 5 months. Now, there's 5 main things that we did, and today I'm going to share all of them with you. Now, I won't be able to talk about the exact example due to an NDA, but I can share the principles and the lessons that we learned, which we now apply to every practice that we work with, regardless of what size you are. So if you own a medical practice and you're looking to increase revenue and bring in more patients, listen up. So the first thing we did was we ditched the generic graphics for high quality video ads and content. See, when we first started working with them, it was just straight generic graphics on their social media pages, and that's also what they were running as ads. Now, don't get me wrong, graphics have their place when they're done correctly, but they were not being done correctly here, and this causes a few problems. First of all, there's a lack of trust when people can't see the providers talking on camera about their expertise and building trust with potential patients. Second, this is what everybody else is doing. Everybody's posting generic graphics because it's easy and it checks the box. So when you do what everybody else is doing, you are then going to look like every other practice in the market. It's not going to present your quality of care and your treatment as premium. That can lead to much lower quality lead flow because people are looking for a better price rather than actual high quality treatment. And when you do look like everybody else in the market, essentially you are just competing on price because there's nothing to help you stand out. So we need to have a much better presence online that stands out from the competition. Really high quality video content so people understand, okay, this practice is probably going to cost more, but their treatment quality is probably much better. They're probably much more likely to solve my problem. So when we made this change, we were able to cut their ad costs in half within just 2 weeks. What that means was they could spend the exact same amount of money on ads, but get twice the patients from it. And as you can imagine, that created a lot more efficiency for us to be able to scale this practice. Now, the way that we cut this practice's ad costs in half was we sent our video team out on site to film with their providers. And we wanted to get really good videos that communicated their expertise, that built trust, and that once again helped them stand out from every other practice in the market. I like to say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but a video is worth 1,000 images. And there are things that videos can accomplish that pictures just cannot do. And when you have the right type of videos and you're running those as ads rather than just the static images over and over again, you get a higher quality and quantity of lead flow. Think about it. You have 2 people. One of them clicked on a video ad. It was 45 seconds long, talked about that person's pain points and specifically what they were dealing with and how they could solve that problem. Or the second person who just clicks on a quick graphic. Who do you think is going to be a higher quality patient? Probably the person that watched a full video educating them on their problem and the solution for their problem. That's exactly the reason why we want to run video ads. We can get all the cheapest leads in the world, but if they're low quality and they're never going to pay for quality care, it doesn't matter. Now, if you want to get higher quality ads filmed for your practice so you can get higher quality lead flow, then that is exactly what our team does. That's what our team did for this practice and every other practice that we work with. We send a professional video team out to your practice to make it easy so all your provider has to do is show up and look good on camera. And if that's you as the provider, I'm sure you'll be a rock star on camera. So if you need help with that, click the link below. You can inquire with our team about us actually coming out and filming your ads and then running those ads for you so that you can scale your practice and you can generate more revenue, fill your team's calendar, all that fun stuff. So to continue on, after we replaced those initial ads and content, we got the providers on camera. We then wanted to document patient testimonials and UGC content. These are some of our highest performing ads. The reason for that is because people want to see social proof. You can talk about how good your quality of care is all day, but everybody talks about how good their service and their care is. So you need to back that up with proof. You need to show people real patients who had an incredible transformation, had a great experience working with you so that it becomes more believable that you can solve their problem. These people want to believe, they want to think that you can solve their problem, but they're skeptical because of how much stuff they've heard online. So when you show them somebody that is just like them, who had a similar problem to them, who no longer has that problem now that they've went through the treatment process or the plan of care with you, that oftentimes is the last straw that actually gets them to inquire with your practice and book an eval. Now, here's the thing. You need to make sure that you're making the right kind of testimonials because you can make testimonials that actually do your business zero good and don't help people actually book an eval. So the way that we do this is with the bridge framework. I actually learned this from Alex Hormozi and the acquisition.com team when I went out for one of their workshops. And ever since, it has been one of the most effective formats for our clients in order to get more patients in the door. So first, we want the patient to talk about their before state. What was their pain point? What was their frustration? What were they dealing with? Second, we want to talk about the steps that they had to go through in order to solve it, which that is essentially your plan of care. What process did you take them through? But people want to hear it from their words, not yours. Now, after they cross this bridge, what does their life look like now? After, what can they do that they were not able to do before working with you? What is different about their day-to-day? And how do they feel now that the problem was solved? Essentially, this 3-part framework is just what was their bad situation, what process did they go through to solve it, and what is their great situation now? It's very simple and it converts incredibly. Now, one thing that is extremely important with these testimonials is that they are relatable. We were filming a few weeks back with one of our practices and they were bringing in patients to give testimonials. And one of the patients that they brought in had gotten out of foot pain and was now able to climb Pikes Peak, a mountain in Colorado. Not to mention the guy was also 70 years old. It was a pretty crazy story. Now, while it is an amazing story, and let's document it, let's still film the testimonial because that is incredible. That type of story does not convert very well as an ad because people don't see themselves in that person. Not many people are aspiring at 70 years old to go climb a mountain, but people are aspiring to be able to step out of bed without feeling foot pain, to be able to play pickleball without feeling foot pain, to go on hikes with their family without constantly having to sit down. Those are the type of people that we want to document because they're going to resonate the most with the largest amount of people, with the biggest total addressable market. Now, the next thing that's very important is it has to show a transformation. And that's why we have the bridge framework to show before, the process, and then after. But a lot of people will film testimonials where their patients are like, hey, Dr. Ben was awesome, loved working with him, would definitely recommend it. That's cool and it serves a purpose, but what impact does that actually have? What emotional resonance does that have on a potential patient? They're still thinking when they hear something like that, okay, can he solve my problem? So instead, we need to actually have a problem that you solved, and we need to have the patient that talks about that rather than just talking about how good you are. Now, the next thing we did, I think is really cool, to be honest. I think it's some ninja marketing stuff. We customized our messaging for each market. They have 3 different clinic locations and they're all in different spots in the same state. They're all about 30 to 45 minutes apart. But the demographics in each one of those cities is completely different. One of them is more like retired military. The other one's more like blue collar, shipyard type of people. And then the other one is more white collar, affluent demographic. Now, when we first started, we had the same ads running for all 3 locations. And what we found was the location with the white collar, more affluent demographic was the highest performing location. The location with more of the blue collar workers, that was the lower performing location. We were getting booked appointments, but not at the cost that we wanted. So I set out on a mission to figure out, first of all, why is this? Because we're using the exact same ads, the exact same conversion systems. Everything is the exact same. The only difference is the location. Therefore, I decided it had to be the location and it had to be the demographic and the type of people that were in that location. So in that one market that was underperforming, we got super specific and started customizing our ads to the exact type of people that were in that market. And that was the blue collar people. We talked about the pain points of, hey, your body hurts after a long day of work. You're seeing these young guys come in and they're able to run circles around you and you feel like your time is over and the young guys are going to be able to overtake you. These are the exact pain points that these type of people had, and we were able to target those pain points. And when we made this adjustment, this was the result. We were able to cut their cost at that location by almost 50%. And there were weeks where this campaign was the highest performing campaign in the entire ad account. So now we actively take this principle and apply it across all 3 locations. What works in one market isn't going to work in another. And if we think about the extreme of this, think about a person in Boise, Idaho versus a person in Miami, Florida, or Austin, Texas, or New York City. These are all totally different types of people. So they're going to resonate with different types of messages. And as a practice owner, you need to know your market. You need to know who is in your market, what type of patients continually come to you, and tailor your messaging towards them. This is why it's so important when you hire a marketing company to hire a company that's actually going to do research on your market rather than just copying and pasting what worked for the last practice, because that last practice could have been in an entirely different market. And honestly, I see a lot of these coaching programs that just deliver scripts and landing pages that are the same for every single market. And that's why their results are inconsistent. Some practices do incredible, and then some practices do very poorly, because marketing is not a one-size-fits-all solution. There's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of context, and you need to be able to understand those little differences, market to market and practice to practice, to be able to successfully market. And that's why it's so important when you find a marketing partner to find somebody who's actually going to do deep market research on your city and where you're located, rather than just copying and pasting what worked for the last practices. See, most companies are just going to copy and paste what they know worked, but that's why their results are so inconsistent, because every market is different. One practice may do absolutely fantastic and the other practice may do completely terrible because they are in different markets. And honestly, these marketing companies that do copy and paste the same strategies for every single practice, they're kind of like the typical healthcare insurance model. No personalization, copying and pasting the same generic plans for every single client, rather than a more personalized experience customized and tailored to you and your practice. So up until this point, we've cut the generic graphics and replaced them for video ads. We've gotten the patient testimonial videos, and we've gotten market-specific messaging. So their creative was absolutely dialed in. Next, we had to move to fixing the data tracking and the KPIs because they had no data tracking or KPI systems in place. The first issue was that their campaigns were optimizing for leads. So whenever we set up a campaign in the ad account, we select exactly what the event that we're optimizing for is. And the company that they were working with before us was optimizing for leads rather than booked appointments. We want to instead optimize for getting the most booked appointments possible. See, when we set up a campaign within Meta, we always select what we want to optimize for with that campaign. That can mean we want to optimize for more leads. We want to optimize for more booked appointments. We want to optimize for more actual purchase plans of care. Now, for 9 out of 10 practices, we want to optimize for booked appointments. That shows the highest level of intent. We cannot optimize for purchases typically because of HIPAA compliance, which I'm going to talk about in a little while, but we don't want to optimize for leads because when we optimize for leads, what happens is people see the ad, they fill out the form, but they might not actually book an appointment. And we're telling Meta that, hey, that is a success. Even though they didn't book an appointment, we're telling Meta all we want is more leads. And while this may make the agency look good for a little while because they can be like, hey, we got you 100 leads today, the extreme example of this is what if those people are homeless? What if those people do not book? Well, we're basically still telling Meta that that was a successful result, and Meta's going to go find more people like that. So if we get a couple homeless people who fill out your form, Meta's going to go find more homeless people to fill out your form. And by that point, your campaign is completely screwed. That's of course the extreme, but the point is what this does is it allows low quality leads to get into your funnel, and it teaches Meta to go keep finding lower quality leads. What we want to do instead is we want to optimize for booked appointments. So the ad is seen, people fill out a form, and then they book an appointment, and Meta counts the appointment as a success. That means people have to book the appointment in order to fire back to what we call the pixel, where Meta says, hey, this was a successful action, and Meta is going to go find more people who are actually likely to book an appointment, not just fill out the form. This is how we make sure that our campaigns are always finding the right type of people. And when we tell Meta exactly the correct objective that we want them to achieve, Meta is extremely smart and they will be able to go achieve that objective. On average, Meta has 52,000 data points on every single user, and we can sit here and try to name 52,000 things about ourselves. It will probably take a while and we probably wouldn't be able to do it. So Meta literally knows more about you and I than we know about ourselves, which is scary, but it is good for you when it comes to advertising when you know how to use that for your advantage. Now, once we had the campaigns optimized for the right objective, we needed to create KPIs. Like I said, they had no KPIs in place, which means that we couldn't tell if our ad costs were actually good or bad. We can look at our cost per appointment, we can look at our cost per lead, but if we don't have a benchmark for what cost per appointment and cost per lead we actually need, then we're really just guessing. So to start, what we needed to do here was we needed to dive deep into all their metrics, find out their close rates, their show rates, how many patients were converting to a plan of care, what was that plan of care worth on average, and how long did these clients stay? And then we could backtrack throughout the rest of the funnel to figure out every single metric that we needed. So just using basic, simple numbers, let's say you wanted to get a patient for $1,000. Now, some of you, that may sound cheap. Some of you, that may sound extremely expensive. It depends on if you're in network, out of network, whatever your type of practice is. But for the sake of this example, let's say that you want to get new patients for $1,000 per new patient. That is your cost per acquisition. And let's say that your clinicians or your sales team closes at a 50% close rate. Well, that means that 50% of $1,000 is $500. So we need every shown appointment to be at $500 or lower for us to meet that KPI. Now, let's say our show rate is also 50%. Well, that means half of our appointments aren't even going to show up. So if it costs us $500 for somebody to actually show up, that means our cost per booked appointment needs to be at $250 or lower. And let's say only 20% of leads actually book an appointment. Well, that means our cost per lead needs to be $50 or lower. So understanding the sales process, the sales metrics, and what each new patient is worth for our clients, we're then able to create these KPIs and understand, is our marketing actually working or is our marketing too expensive? Because for some practices, a $250 cost per booked appointment is great. For some practices, it's absolutely terrible. It all just depends on your practice, and we're not just going to look at the numbers and say, oh, that looks good or that looks bad. We're going to say this looks good or bad in comparison to what our KPI actually needs to be. This allows us to make smarter decisions within marketing. And honestly, this is what makes us with our clients more of a marketing partner than just an agency, because we map out every single statistic that we need. These are just the baseline statistics, but we're also looking at what are our CPMs, what is our click-through rate, what is our opt-in rate. We're backtracking every single one of those steps, creating our KPIs so that our client always has clarity within their their marketing process. When we do this correctly, marketing and growing your practice becomes an equation. All we need to know is the variables inside of that equation. But if we don't know the variables inside of that equation, we're essentially guessing, and guessing is a very difficult business strategy. I wouldn't recommend it. Now, the next thing we did was we decreased their channel risk. They had a lot of money, too much money, honestly, going towards Google ads. It was bringing in the majority of their lead flow, and they were underspending on Meta ads. Now, this was working fine for them until their Google agency ended up getting their account compromised, and Google ads went down for a solid 2 to 3 weeks. They were spending $150,000 a month on Google ads, so you can imagine how much of a decrease we saw in lead flow. So all of a sudden, the pressure was on with me and my team, and we had to figure out stuff within Meta. So we took a lot of that budget and transitioned it over to Meta. And what we saw, since we had the right creative, we had the right messaging, we had the right KPIs in place, is we were able to scale spend on Meta pretty quickly and pretty efficiently. And even with Google being down for 2 weeks, revenue stayed consistent because we had the right systems in place on Meta. So with that, all in all, Google going down actually had very minimal impact on their business. But once we got Google back up, now we had less risk in every single channel. We had Facebook and Instagram ads running. We had a stronger organic presence. We had connected TV running. We had Google ads running, so that if any of those channels go down, we have other channels that we can ramp up in order to make sure that it doesn't impact the business drastically and we don't eat into profits because lead flow is just completely tanked. Now, if your practice is under $100,000 a month, I would recommend that you don't worry about single channel risk yet. Just get really good at one marketing strategy. But as you get to 6 figures per month and multiple 6 figures per month, and hopefully eventually 7 figures per month, you need to be able to diversify your channels in case something like this happens where one of your channels goes down. Now, the last thing I'll touch on, which is extremely, extremely important when you're hiring a marketing partner, is we made sure that we had HIPAA compliant tracking in place. This is a very difficult thing to set up, and it is extremely technical. But to help you understand this, the way that you track results for every other industry is very simple and straightforward. We can see who clicked on an ad, who converted from that ad, tell Meta, hey, this person converted, and call it a day. Meta's gonna go find more of those people. It is not that simple in the medical field. It's a HIPAA violation if you send people's public health information back through and begin tracking that to see who converted from your ads, how many people are converting from your ads. So you have to set up the right systems to make sure that we're not passing through PHI, but still being able to get the data that we need to say, hey, people are converting or they're not converting on these ads. This is why you absolutely need to find a marketing partner that specializes within medical, or else they can get your practice into a ton of trouble. The first issue would be that your ad account gets restricted or gets shut down, and your entire profile gets shut down, which is what Meta is most likely to do, because legally, Meta will not sign a HIPAA agreement because they want to stay out of it completely. So if they begin to suspect that you have any sort of HIPAA violation going on, they're going to be very quick to shut down your account. And as you scale, if you're spending thousands and then tens of thousands and then even hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads for your practice, but you're not doing it properly and Meta suspects an issue and they shut your ad account down, you can imagine how that's going to impact your lead flow. Now, if you paid attention to the other points, hopefully you have decreased your single channel risk with Meta and you have some other platforms going, but still not ideal to have your entire account shut down. Now, they may also limit the amount that you can spend. So they may say, hey, you can't spend more than $10,000 a month on Meta ads, which creates a massive ceiling for you to be able to scale, especially when Meta is the most effective and profitable platform to market on, and it has the largest amount of people on it. If you end up getting capped by how much you can spend, that's going to put a massive constraint on your practice. Now, the worst case scenario is you actually get a HIPAA violation and you get a massive fine, which that would suck. And it's rare. I haven't seen it in many circumstances, but it can happen. And this is why you need somebody in your corner who understands how to set up proper tracking so that everything is 100% compliant. So if you want a team that understands compliant marketing, but most importantly, understands how to generate more revenue and more patients more profitably for your practice so that you can scale predictably and consistently, bring new patients in the door every single day, click the link below in the description. You can schedule a call with me and my team. We'll talk about where your practice is at right now, where you're looking to go, and if we can help bridge the gap in order to help you get there. Anyways, I hope you got some value from this video. If you enjoyed this video, you will definitely enjoy this video here as well, and I'll see you on the next one.